It's time for another video of me rambling on and on for however long about something. This is a rant, by the way, a Fire Emblem related rant. So I've played Fire Emblem since I don't know, since I was like 10 or 12. My friend had the game. They couldn't beat it. He lent it to me because we played chess together. He knew I was a strategy oriented guy. He lent me the game. And I beat it after playing it a lot. That was this one, Fire Emblem. Right. So this was my introduction to Fire Emblem. This game was amazing, and to this day, I would rank this as number one in the Fire Emblem franchise because of length, the paths. Hector hard mode is the hardest Fire Emblem mode I've played, except for the supposedly or the ones that aren't really supposed to be beaten by everyone, like freaking Nightmare mode or whatever the heck it's called. I can't remember what it's called from Awakening. Yeah, Classic Plus or whatever, Classic Plus Plus, something like that. And then so we had this game. This was the West's introduction. Right, this was North America's introduction to Fire Emblem, because Fire Emblem had been around in Japan, the older games. Since this game, I played this. I played the next one, which was Sacred Stones. I played the DS adaptation of Marth's first game. I've started the DS adaptation of Marth's second game, Heroes of Light and Shadow. I've played Path of Radiance. I've played Radiant Dawn. I've played Fates, kind of. Alright, we'll get back to Fates. I've played Awakening, and I have not beaten the last one they put out yet, which is the... should be on here somewhere, right? I can't remember the name of it. Her game. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head now, which is kind of embarrassing. Fire Emblem. Yeah, that's a bit frustrating that I can't remember that. Alright, and then there's Fire Emblem Heroes, Fire Emblem Warriors. We won't be talking about Warriors because it's Fire Emblem characters thrown into a Samurai Warriors game. That's all it is, so we're not going to talk about that. We will hit Fire Emblem Heroes. So, let's start from the beginning. Fire Emblem was, for me, a strategy game that I fell in love with. I fell in love with the characters, the gameplay, the leveling system. RNG has never been kind to me, but Fire Emblem, I didn't really think about it, and so maybe that's why it wasn't as bad. I have a video that I would like to put out some point of a specific thing that I don't want to spoil, that I've done several times but never recorded. And I'd have to somehow get a recording of it, but I'm not even that far in the game and replaying this game for like the 18th time yet, so I'd have to get to that. And it's on Hector hard mode because anything else is something I've done already and I want to play it on a difficulty I haven't done it. If I can ever get around to doing that video, you'll see it. But so this game, Sacred Stones, was a lot easier because you could grind, but at the time I didn't really think much of that. And Sacred Stones is actually not up in the results, which doesn't surprise me. Sacred Stones is looked on, this is stupid, is looked on as much lower ranked. We'll just search Sacred Stones itself. It's looked on as a much lower ranked game among the Fire Emblem games. Is Ewan. Whoever makes him a Mage Knight. Alright, Druid. Ewan, Druid, every time. But okay. Sacred Stones was a ton of fun. Ephraim, because Eliwood is kind of Hector was the original badass, I would say, for Fire Emblem games that I've played. Hector was the original badass. Ephraim was the tactical genius warmonger his character was very appealing. Erica's was more appealing than Ellie would. And now that I look back on it in later years, I kind of even like her more than Lynn. I always liked Lynn a lot, but looking back on it, actually Erica's character was pretty fleshed out with her conversations and is more likable than I ever gave her credit for back then. Lion was dope. Unfortunately, of course, probably shouldn't have clicked that. Unfortunately, he was. Did I close the wrong one? No. Alright. Unfortunately, he's never usable. But, what is this? Alright, I'm not reading that. But in Fire Emblem, Sacred Stones, I found my first waifu. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the word, because if you're watching my videos, you're probably a geek, a nerd. And there she is. This is her art for Heroes, or Heroes. But Marissa, this is her portrait. And the thing is that there's a character in this character right here, character in Sacred Stones called Joshua. That's my name, IRL. So obviously I shipped them together, you know. They already put me in the game, except he's lucky and I'm not, so there's that. But Marissa was the first character in a game that I actually liked enough to, what's the word, create scenarios for. And I need to stop opening stuff. The thing is about Fire Emblem, for those who don't know, is it's permadeath. So if a character dies, you start over. I used to always start over. I would replay. Okay, we're gonna backtrack because of that image. But I used to replay. I used to replay games or levels over and over and over again until I got a run where no one died for that level. And I would keep going through the entire game. I would get every character you can get, and I would play the entire game and make sure no one died. Later, I would start doing runs where I didn't do that because that kind of gets rid of the point. And a lot of people, I would say, reset runs when people die. So not doing it is kind of like nuzlocking, like the Pokemon concept, Nuzlocke. But where you don't restart. And so every death is even more pivotal. And I did that several times for different games. But I'm going to fast forward because I played Marth's game, the adaptation, which wasn't great. Let's be honest, neither one of them were amazing. Fast forward to Radiant Dawn. Radiant Dawn's storyline was so long, and I binge played it and beat it in like 3 or 4 days when I got it. I just played it hours upon hours every day because I got it over a weekend, and I just played it after I got home from school, played it weekend, played it, and I beat it in 3 or 4 days. That game is so long. But, and Ike was the new character that I really liked. Ike was, actually this is a video by, I don't know who, but if you look this up, this video is pretty funny. Ike, instead of being a royal like Ellie would, Hector, Erica, Lynn, even, you know, he's a mercenary, so he doesn't have a bloodline. So that was kind of appealing. His character. Oh, there's a blue hair gimmick with main characters, by the way. Several people don't follow this, like Micaiah, but she's just a secondary main to Ike. Her story is pretty interesting. Kinda. I don't know. It's weird. But his original game was Path of Radiance. I didn't get that until way down the line. I had to buy a copy off eBay to play it. So my introduction to Ike was Radiant Dawn. I always had a self-made rule where I don't use pre-promotes. So I never used Seth. I never used Jagan in Marth's game. I never used... I can't even remember the name of Elliewood's advisor because I never used them. Marcus. And then I didn't use Titania, in Ike's game. And I didn't use Soth. Well, I did use Soth for a bit, but I didn't use Soth much in Mikaea's play because they're all proof modes. And I have a thing against using them because they can't be capped off. Now, that got changed in Awakening because you can class people into classes that are lower. So pre-promotes weren't even a big deal. They didn't lower the overall leveling, which kind of takes away from the RNG leveling element of the game because you can just reset and get more levels to try and get stats until you max them all. And at some point, I had the DLC Ike with Limit Break, which was a rune you got with the DLC that let all your stats go up by like 10 or 20. And I maxed all of those. And his stats were all in like the 60s and 50s. And they're actually ridiculous. And that's what Awakening became. Which is cool, but it kind of takes away from the game, like the gameplay of the RNG element of leveling. When you give a character the ability to reclass, and you give the ability to, even as early as Sacred Stones, just grind on the map. Now, you couldn't do that in either of Ike's games, and you can't do that in Fire Emblem, but you could do that in Sacred Stones, and you can do it in Birthright, Fates, you can do it in Awakening, where you just level up on the map so that when you go into actual story, your characters are whatever level you wanted to get them to, and your chances of losing are pretty much nil. Again, that makes it more accessible for other people, but I would try not to use the mechanic. Back when I played Sacred Stones, I would set limits. Be like, okay, I'm going to get everyone to level 12 before I do Chapter 9. Something like that. Because if I just went, hey, let's just max everybody using the Tower of Elni, it's like, okay, now the rest of the game is just easy. So I think Fire Emblem did it. This one did it best. You pick your team, you level them. Now you can't try and level well, you can. You can't just rotate people and train everybody in a game like this, where there's no whatever, which does take away from the ability to use whoever you want. Now, you can still use whoever you want, but you need to make a team and bring them to every mission so they level up. Rather, unlike Sacred Stones, where you could level every single character, and then every mission you could pick who you want, instead of making a team for an entire playthrough. So I understand the appeal of being able to level on the map, but the games that I enjoyed the most did not have that, with the exception of Sacred Stones. But that one is nostalgia, because it was one of the first games I played. And I originally had that as my favorite, but looking back, this one is my favorite without nostalgia glasses on. Sacred Stones had plenty of flaws, but fast forward a bit more, and we get to Awakening. Awakening was great. Awakening was a good introduction. It saved the series in a lot of people's eyes because it made new people want to play it. They introduced casual mode. I'm not a fan, but again, it's something for people to make it more accessible to everyone. So people that wouldn't want to play a permadeath game, they can now play it and not have to deal with permadeath. That's good for the game as a whole, for Nintendo. Again, not a fan. I didn't play that. I always play Classic, but it makes sense that they would do something like that. Now, fast forward even more. I should probably hit Awakening. They added DLC, and so the game made them a lot of money, which is fine. We're not going to talk about business practices. And the game as a whole wasn't that bad as far as the next topic I'm going to bring up. We get to Fates. Now, Fates can be summed up in one picture. This one. Fates was fan service. Stupid amounts of fan service. This character is my least favorite character in any Fire Emblem game because she embodies fan service. That picture I showed earlier, fan service. This was female characters back in. No, where's her original art? Female characters back in. That's her official trading card game art. Female characters back in Sacred Stone's time. They didn't get sexualized. This is their art. This was great. Even Teth, who's literally, I actually don't know how to pronounce her name, but who's literally like a dancer. Even her art wasn't like sexualized. And then you get to Fates, and you just get Camilla, which is just the embodiment of what is wrong with Fire Emblem now, which is excessive amounts of fan service. Awakening introduced the marrying system, which let you get the kids, which was cool. And in a way, that system was a thing all the way back in, I don't know whether it's Genealogy. It's the one with Leaf. And, no, not Leaf. Well, maybe Leaf. It's the one with Seliph and Sigurd. Because, spoiler, the father, who I think is Sigurd, I never played those games, they're in Japan only, gets killed, and you continue the game years later as his son, and with, like, kids from the other ones. And then Roy's game. Well, I haven't even touched Roy's game yet, which is Fire Emblem 6, which is actually before this one, and got an English adaptation after Sacred Stones, and of course on an emulator you can get the English version of it, but it's about the kids of Elliewood, although technically Elliewood is about the parents of Roy, because Roy's game was first, but a lot of those kids are canonically related to characters from this game, such as Ray and Lou being related to Nino, although they're both awful relations to Nino because Nino is perfect, and Ray and Lou are whatever as far as characters go. Nino is amazing character, strength-wise. Oh yeah, I guess I should fess up. There is one, well, two, I guess, because you have to bring Athos to the last storyline on Fire Emblem. There is one exception to the no pre-promotes rule, and that's Jafar, because he was too big of a badass for me not to bring him, and I would usually max him like 2 levels after you get him, 2 chapters after you get him. So yeah, and he would usually like cap 3 stats and be able to go toe-to-toe with every single character in the last chapter, because he's Jafar, and there's nothing else you can look. Like, what do you expect from a guy that looks like this, that's name is Angel of Death? The guy was a badass. And there's Nino. Shipping them is great. Probably my first Fire Emblem ship, real ship, that wasn't just because one of the characters is my name, was Nino and Jafar. But we were talking about Fates. Fates is an interesting concept with being able to pick your storyline, but you have like a character on both sides that just calls you Oni-chan and whatever, and then there's that whole meeting in the room thing, which is again just fan service. Some of the characters are pure fan service, like Camilla. This is pointless, this is so dumb, why? And the game, with the ability to max your characters, it seemed like it was slowly moving away from being a strategy oriented, learn the characters, learn their storylines, play the game, you have to be smart, you have to play well, into the characters are carbon copies of each other. None of them have any personality, and even the ones that do, you never have to worry about actually having them die, because you can grind them to max level as soon as like chapter 3. And that just ruined the game, and to this day I have not beaten Fates. I have both Fates games. I was so hyped for Fates, and I got like to chapter 10, I just felt like I don't want to play this game anymore. It just doesn't feel like a Fire Emblem game. There's they changed the weapon system, they changed the items, they keep doing that, which is fine if they want to experiment. But the next one that comes out on 3DS, I'll be getting it, or Switch rather. I'll be getting it. I just hope it's more of a callback to this instead of another one of these. But that's the problem with Fire Emblem for me right now. Is that Lucina? That's some good art, actually. But that's Fire Emblem's main issue, is that it's becoming fan service and it's losing the appeal of both the strategy and the characters. This is art that was in Awakening. So Marth, Ike, Marth, I think that's... Oh, this is Leaf. This is... I should know who this... This is really good art for Lynn, Ike, Micah, Kada, Crom, Roy. And this is Sigurd or Sleeve, I think. I think that's Sigurd, but I could be wrong. This is a YouTube video. But that's what's wrong with Fire Emblem. As far as everything, it's just... And then this is a picture of the new game, which makes it look absolutely nothing like the vintage games, which hurts. I wish they would... I don't even want them to remake the GBA games, because they'd probably remake it in a way that they're making the current ones and ruin it for me. And you can say I'm looking through it with nostalgia glasses, but you can't deny that this art and this art has a clear difference, and that's fan service. And this gameplay and this gameplay have a clear difference, and that's this is easy and this is hard. Although this game is hard. If you don't abuse what they give you, this game is pretty difficult. Of course, I was playing Birthright and Conquest at the same time with two different DSs, so I was kind of distracted, so maybe that's why the levels seemed harder for me, but I don't know. But yeah. And then Heroes is a gacha game. It's pay to get your characters, and I was okay with it. I didn't even have a big problem with this game. I liked the promotions, the fact that if you just saved up from playing the normal game, you could probably get somebody you wanted every so often without having to worry about gambling money. Except they made Marissa a limited time event that I missed because I was away and I didn't have internet for a long time. So I missed the event. She wasn't just a character you could get randomly. So even though I had saved up 100-something orbs by playing the game, I couldn't even just binge spend them on red trying to get Marissa because she was an event that was already over. And I haven't really played it since that disappointment. So, yeah. But, yeah, I'm sure there's people that might agree with this, and I'm sure there's probably more people that don't agree with this. And in the end, as far as Fire Emblem getting fans, I think Nintendo's direction was correct because it's what brings in more people. The classic or the casual mode, letting people train up, letting people not have to worry about permadeath. I think it's great for the growth, but I want people to realize the roots, and because some people probably think of this when they think of Fire Emblem. I think of this every time. If someone mentions Fire Emblem, I think of this. This and this, that's the same game, but this, Fates, I don't think of Fates. I'll never think of Fates when I think of Fire Emblem. I'll always think of this. I'll always think of Sacred Stones. Even Roy's game. That's what I grew up with. So you might think I'm looking through it with nostalgia glasses, but you can't deny that there's some clear differences, and I'm sure some people will agree with me and some people won't. But if you like the old games or like the new games, whatever your favorite game is, comment it in the bottom and tell me why. If you like Fates, comment why, because I've heard some explanations for it, but never a compelling argument. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone can come up with one. I'll never forget these games. No matter how much they butcher Fire Emblem, Nintendo, I won't forget that you made Fire Emblem good originally. Oh, also, Fire Emblem was changed. Uh, the person who created actually, like the main guy, I forget whose video it was that I watched about the history of the development, but that person changed from these games to this game, like right before this game or right before Awakening, probably. The main creator of the game changed over because the guy was fired or something. I don't remember what it was. I don't want to say he was fired when he might not have been, but so that's definitely a possible reason. All right, I'm gonna go right into my next rant. So I will see you guys in that video in about 30 minutes.